All right, everybody, welcome back. We are on 6.
Number 6.
On 6. And today we're going to dive into the topic of worship and music.
Yeah.
Worship and music, I'll say.
Yeah.
Because worship is like a main ingredient to every version of church I've experienced.
Yeah.
I think most people would say the same. But like, I remember going through a phase where like secular music was discouraged, and I never really understood why we worshipped. And so, I mean, there's a lot there, so we'll unpack it.
Yeah.
Before we dive into that, a couple things to talk about. First, my hair. A little different. I don't know if you guys noticed. Your boy got a perm done for the first time ever.
Pama.
Ikaja and Federal Way, LKJ Hair Salon. If you guys are looking, look no further. I was like looking up Google search and asking everybody for references. They killed it. So there's that.
Since when is that in? Who gets Pama? Like a guy who gets Pama, like that's in.
Well, okay, one, Korean fobs like since the Stone Age, right? Like that's what they do. I have a coworker and he says he watches Korean dramas. He's not Korean and he's just a black dude. He goes, yeah, that's that Korean success perm. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, every Korean drama, once some dude gets successful and he gets a glow up, the motherfucker gets a perm. And so he's like, now when I see people walking around, that's like a flex to your mama saying, I made it, mom, a success perm.
Yeah, you let me know what your mama says.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, you let me know.
On a more serious note, yesterday we found out through social media, a couple of media outlets, that a 29-year-old Chinese American got stabbed to death in fucking Balta, Washington. Man, that is 5 minutes up this, like 5-10 minutes up the road. Yo, everybody, be vigilant and safe out there. Like vigilant, like head on a swivel. Like for me, honestly, now because we're still wearing masks, if a white person doesn't like give me the nod or smile, I'm like on red alert, and I'm just being for real right now. Because like at least a little friendly nod is like, okay, I know I don't have to worry about this person stabbing me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But in any case, I mean, we don't need to dive too deep into it, but like, I can't believe this shit's happening, and so people like, please be safe out there. Like, this person was going to a business meeting at a friend's house.
Crazy.
29-year-old guy. That's fucking me and Ray.
Yeah.
You know, it's nuts.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning in the areas of not just being vigilant, but also being aware that there are physical expressions being, I guess, experienced in ways that's targeting Asian Americans. Like people are a little bit more aggressive towards the Asian American community now.
Yeah.
It could be because, of the Black Lives Matter. It could be because Stop Asian Hate and all the stuff that's going around in social media. But people are a little bit more, I guess, agitated, aggressive towards Asian American community as we see more and more news come out.
Yeah.
And so I think part of me is, part of the Asian American experience is just bottle it up or, be a little bit more quiet so that these things don't happen. But I think it's even more of an encouragement for us to say, this is when we should speak up and speak out, not tolerate these things. I'm not saying that we got to, reciprocate violence for violence, but I think there is a form of our voice that needs to be encouraged that says this is not okay, we're not going to stand for it.
Han, for you Koreans out there, tap into that inner Han. You know what I'm saying? That inner Han. If you don't know what it is, shame on you. Google that shit because it's real and it applies. All right. So one other thing we want to chat about is we keep asking for feedback. We love interacting with you guys, and we actually got a pretty cool DM that we wanted to address.
We want more of it. Yeah.
We do. One of our incredible listeners here said, would love to hear you unpack what you said about reconciling your mom's devotion to God, plus the challenging life that she lived back in episode 4. So for context for those that didn't tune into episode 4, what are you doing? Go fucking tune into episode 4. But I talked about the fact that my mom is quite literally the most devout, obedient, astute follower of Christ I've ever met in my life, right? Like, bar none. And the woman has lived a very hard life. Right, she grew up with not much.
Yeah.
She got married into a family that did not treat her well.
Right.
Her husband died of cancer. She had to raise a family, single mom. She worked in the post office for 20 plus years. So it's like at every big phase of her life, despite the fact that she was so faithful and obedient to God, the outcome that I see is more suffering.
Right. Yeah.
And it's I think it makes sense that people that suffer a lot might be a little closer to God because that's their support system. That's all they have.
Real.
Yeah. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but just from what I'm seeing and observing, it's like, why is it that the have-nots are the Christians and the haves are not Christians? And for me personally, I grew up in a church where I didn't see a ton of successful and happy people loving God. And that further pushed the narrative that money, success, and wealth is bad, which I don't think is the case. I don't believe in that.
Right.
So even now, to be honest, I'm still struggling with that. It's like, that's why I think it's so important for people with ambitions to go do big fucking things, still love and demonstrate their love for God and live life in that way,
100%.
and pave a new path. Because for me, it was, you can either be unhappy but have God, or have money and be unhappy. It's money doesn't buy you happiness.
Right.
Well, no shit, but I'd rather be fucking rich and unhappy than poor and unhappy. That's a no-brainer.
We know the other side. Yeah.
Right. So that's what I meant. And so I also feel like
it's good.
My mom living the life that she did, part of it is just she had no choice, right? Immigrant circumstances, all that. But I also think that there's something to be said, like there is a lot of life that happens outside of Christianity and the church that you have control over.
Right.
And I just, as I'm growing up, I need to make the conscious decisions of like, what do I want to learn from my mother's decisions? What do I want to replicate or not?
Right.
And I observed a little bit too much spirituality on her end, where I'm just like, well, I think we have a lot more power and control. There's a lot we can't control, but there's a lot we can. And I just don't subscribe to this idea that everything is hyper spiritual and we got to pray about it. It's like, for example, I remember walking my mom through like budgeting. Right, that woman knows how to budget her ass off. When I get older, I'm like running through finances and this and that now, and I realize she's like, I'm trying to like help her like with the budget sheet I use and whatever, right? My tactics, and she I don't care. Well, I don't want to stress out about this. You know why? Because I believe God will provide.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, bet, but like this is math, mom. Like you have income, you have expenses, and you get leftover for like this is very like. This isn't woo-woo shit. Like, let's talk about this. I've raised you your whole life without doing any of this. You think I need to know this? And I'm just like, well, no, but like, let's expand. Let's level up.
There might be a better way.
Right. So that's what I meant when I talked about that. Like I said, that's why I'm a lot more open to like the Judah Smiths of the world. Because I see pastors and these devout Christians that are fucking killing it in life.
Right.
They still love God, head on their shoulders, but they're successful.
Yeah.
And they don't let that kind of... it's not a mutually exclusive thing.
That's good, yeah.
And I strive for... That's the life I would like to emulate versus this, I'm going to suffer, but I'm going to suffer with Jesus' life.
Right. Yeah, that's really good.
Anything
and hopefully, and one of the things that you and I have always talked about is like, there's also purpose to money. It's not just to have. Right. You know what I mean? It's also a place to steward, but also give generously. Right. Like position, platform, finances. All these things are beautiful blessings that we get to experience, but also bless others with. Right. There's a purpose to it.
Totally.
And so I think without that purpose, without that meaning or direction, then I think that's when it becomes really unhealthy, volatile. Right. And that's where the Bible talks about, being the root of many evils and etc. Right. But that's the tension that I love to have with people. Like, I hope there's more, millionaires and billionaires, people in the entertainment industry doing big things. Like that should be encouraged in so many ways, But all of that is for a beautiful purpose that I think goes beyond ourselves. It's bigger than ourselves. That's exciting. You know what I mean? Totally. And so that's why I love what you've been going through and where you aspire to be. It's like, let's go get it.
Let's get this bread.
All
right. So, I mean, that's just one example, guys. If you have other questions, keep them coming. We'll answer them.
Yeah. If I could also just say, I think her question is so personal and so real because, at least for me, my mom is like the ultimate advocate for Jesus, praying for me, etc. But I think the other part of it is, because I would ask her, because we grew up poor. Yeah. Like we had to save up to go to Value Village poor. Yeah. And so I think in that place, I've always questioned, if God is so good, why do we have to go through these things? Right. And my mama, God bless my mama, she's like, God's gonna take care of us, Yeah. Or she'd be like, look, praise God, we got a miracle today. I was like, what happened? We qualified for food stamps. And I'm like,
oh damn, it was like that?
We already qualified for food stamps. We don't need God to,
Yeah.
But I think in that, what she was trying to open my eyes to was the reality that God is present with us. But also, as I got older, I started to ask her like real questions, like, why do you believe so fervently in a God that, allows us to suffer so much? Right. And I'll never forget my mom's response, and I didn't get it then, but her two responses were, I knew God. I knew a life before I knew God, and I'm never going back there. And the other thing of it was, now that I know who God is, it's not about what God gives me, but what God sits with me in. It's a present God. It's a God that transforms me from the internal, not just makes my circumstances differently.
Yeah.
And I realized then, because my eyes were so fixated on what God does around her, that I couldn't see what God was doing in her. And the deep peace, the deep hope, the deep sense of love and value that I couldn't comprehend at that time, because it was her faith journey. And there is nobody in the world that can convince my mom that God doesn't exist.
Right.
Nothing. It's just like your mama. Just like, the viewer's mama. Nothing is going to convince her or them, simply because they've had such a real experience with God. That's when I realized I need to go on a personal journey that helps me question, but also experience God in the realest of ways. Otherwise, I'm never going to get it.
You're making some circuits fire in my brain now, because I think there's like a psychology aspect to this, right? Like, it's not everything is spiritual woo-woo. Like, it's like our parents grew up a life without God. They don't want to go back to it. But I think that, like, because they were so disadvantaged and suffering, they've abandoned anything that comes from the earthly, fleshly world, which, like, I get that. But like, the side effect is that they lose their power. They feel very much like they kind of abandon the world and disempower themselves. Whereas, like, I feel like God gave us a lot of power to do a lot of shit here, right? So it's like, it's, again, not mutually exclusive.
That's the other thing. That's good.
So worship. We want to talk about this because worship is an interesting thing. I think from the outside looking in, like, if you're not a Christian, I bring you to church, we're worshiping, it's fucking awkward. It's just kind of weird, right? Like, okay, some people are sitting, some people are standing, some people are fucking wailing and raising their hands up in the air. But again, I've never experienced a church that doesn't have worship. From inside the church, though, like, it's a key ingredient, right? It's like, it's the opener, right? It's what gets your heart soft. It's kind of how you flex also, whether it be conscious or not, right? You go to a new church, the first thing that happens is worship, and okay, how nasty are these vocals? How nasty is this guitarist and all that? So it's kind of interesting that's so different from either side. But my question to you, Sam, is, like, why do we worship? Because, I mean, I haven't read the Bible end to end, but like, does it mandate that shit? Like, if you're gonna have a church, you better have fucking worship.
No, I mean, when we say worship, we mean like the music, the sound, the noise, all that stuff.
David Crowder Band, drum, electric,
Chris Tomlins, God bless them. But I mean, the Bible doesn't expressly say this is what your Sunday service is going to look like, let alone have a Sunday service.
No program,
Right. But I think the churches adopt this idea of music because music is a huge part of our DNA. It's a huge part of how we live life. I don't know a single individual that doesn't listen to any sort of music, It moves us, it connects us, it allows us to express ourselves in ways that go beyond just what is in our mental space. Like, it takes everything, our entire being, and allows us to connect to something. Right. And so that's essentially why we do praise. That's exactly what why church is incorporated, because it allows us to just lower our guards and to be fully expressive to the song, to the lyrics, to the music, you know. And I mean, worship or praise is one of my favorite aspects of church.
Me too. For sure. We were talking offline. It's like, or off air. So I haven't been to a physical church building or a church service in a while. Like I mentioned last episode, we're here every Sunday doing sermons. Come on, we fast forward the fucking worship part. Like, come on, like, what are we gonna do? You know what I'm saying?
You don't want to hear each other sing.
Yeah, just kind of weird and like, right. But one time I remember I was driving in my car by myself. I think I was driving down to like Tacoma or some shit to golf. I had like an hour drive to myself, and I like to sit in silence. And and I mean nowhere, I haven't been to church service or done worship in like at least a year. Compared to growing up where that's all I ever did. Side note, if you grew up in the church, on average, I feel like you got nastier vocals than people that don't. Right? Just because you're singing every Sunday service, Tuesday service, like whatever the fuck. Like, I feel good about my pipes, and I credit that to the church. So thank you. But I'm driving down, and out of nowhere, this like, I don't even know if it's like an official old school hymn, but like a non-contemporary song just kind of popped into my head. And I just started singing it a little. I started humming it, then I started feeling myself, and I started singing it. It's the "Who am I that the Lord of all the earth?"
Okay.
That song, right?
Oh yeah, I hear the pipes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was nothing. But so I'm singing this shit, and out of nowhere, I just start bawling. I'm crying, and I'm like, "What the fuck is that? Like, what happened?" Right?
Yeah.
And like what you said, when I went to church, worship was one of my favorite parts too, because there's something special in like disconnecting from everything around
Absolutely.
you and it being about you and God.
Yeah.
I think it's really unique too, where you can go to any church anywhere in the world and still have that same connection.
You could.
Right? Which tells me there's something real here.
Yeah.
There's something of substance here.
Right. That's powerful. Ooh,
Yeah.
I felt that.
It was just weird. And
Yeah.
so it was just kind of a kick in the ass to be like, you should probably not completely not do this because it moves you for a reason. Let's figure this out.
Right.
So yeah, worship.
Yeah.
It's just...
And I think some people have, especially if you've been hurt by the church, traumatized by the church, you make everything very rational. Everything has to be logical. It has to make sense because that's our defense mechanism, right? Because the church is overly emotional, and so we put our guards up. But I think what music does in general, it lowers our guard and allows us to feel. It allows us to connect with. It allows us to maybe even be vulnerable for a couple moments to something that's bigger. You know, and that's when it hits you sideways. And it's funny because at least for me, it always happens in the car. Yeah, I don't know what it is about road trips or traffic. You're just stuck in your car, whatever.
Music is meant to be heard in the fucking car.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it just hits you sideways, especially when you're by yourself. Yeah, and you just feel it, and you're just like, "What is going on?" That's true. And either you allow it to happen, or you just kind of just like suck it up and be like, "Okay, that was weird." Right. You know.
Right. And I kind of want to close the gap between worship and just music, secular music, right? Because back in the day, when I was addicted to that Kool-Aid, I went to this like crazy campus ministry thing in Kansas City, and I was just taught, secular music, what are you doing? What is you doing? Right. You listening to doing drugs and fucking bitches and getting money and like what? Don't tell me it's about just the beats. Like, what are you really feeding into, Daniel? And I was like, oh shit, you're right. But that's whack ass shit because I'll tell you why. I just adopted that as secondhand knowledge. And then, like I did back then, I just fucking pontificated that to my friends. And I remember, like, talking to my friend, one of my best friends. I was like, dude, you need to stop listening to the hip-hop nonsense, right? That it's just garbage. And God can't work through that. And he was just like, you motherfucker. And he put me on my ass. He goes, during my deepest days of depression, this last couple of months, hip-hop saved me. And I felt like God was speaking to me through these lyrics. The artist, I'm sure, had a different expression or intent. Right. But God worked through that music, you know? And so I want to close the gap of worship and music in that, like you said. Yeah. There's just something special to melody and music. And for sure. I'm sure you guys out there have had a shitty day and the right song comes on, you're like, it's gonna be okay. Right? Or you're getting ready to go out and that fucking Future Drake comes on, you're like, ooh, I feel a little prettier tonight. Like that type of shit. It just happens. Yeah. So I guess for me personally, I view them kind of similarly. Yeah. Maybe intent's a little different. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's wrong to demonize worship music into saying, well, it disarms you, and it's like an intoxicating factor. Yeah. That's all music. Yeah. I think there are certain... Love Lupe. Me and Lupe, we get along. We know each other. Okay. The dude's a poet. I appreciate and value artists that really can articulate and communicate where they're at and express their true kind of like heart form, their life circumstances, and you connect with that. Right. Then there's just trashy music in general. Then I'm just like, I don't care for that. You know what I mean? And so I think there are some ways that we can say, okay, there may be things that may be pollutant to your soul by listening to certain things. Yeah. When you like over objectify women or men or whatever, things that are just not conducive for society in general. I'm like, I don't care for that. Yeah. But when you got poets that are really speaking to your soul, because they're really crying out their pain, their struggle, and really trying to figure out life, I'm like, we can connect with that. Right. And it's more personal. Yeah. Like J. Cole, No Role Models, that pierced my soul. And I don't know what that is. I don't know that. I only have so much patience. I feel judgment as soon as I said that. I didn't know. This is one of the greatest of our time. Anyways, whatever. But like artists, hip hop specifically, or all music really, it's like a channel to elevate their expression of themselves.
Yeah.
And I think there's something special there versus like worship is not really about, it's not about one person's story.
Yeah.
It's like, it's about God
Yeah.
and glorifying God.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but again,
Yeah.
a little difference in intent there.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said.
Yeah. And I think it could be kind of fun if people who have been traumatized and hurt by the church to have moments where there may be an old school song that you used to sing that just connects, you know? I'm not really a big fan of contemporary Christian music anymore just because it all sounds the same. It all sounds like Hillsong.
Can we talk about that?
I'm like,
why? Why does all Christian music have that same makeup?
The rock band kind of like type of deal.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of history to it. I think it went from the hymns to...
Is it because of the colonizers?
Like I said, I think it went from the hymns to there. I would say the first kind of like contemporary music came from like the Catholic Church that kind of wanted to modernize music, and most of them were predominantly Caucasian, which they have a rock bandish type of jam to it. So that kind of
in Catholic.
Oh yeah. Not a lot of people know Catholics. They got down, you know. So they tried to contemporize certain things, and then you have the Vineyard movement that really contemporized, added the drums and da. But it all stemmed from a certain type of style historically so many years ago, and now we have that today. Whereas the African American church, the black church, really tried to contemporize hymns into gospel. You know, it's a deep soulful with the choir. There's a lot of that. Not a lot of people are used to that, but man, when you really get into it, it's a lively place in music.
And it's like you think about it's interesting to look at cultural churches and see how the worship looks different.
Oh yeah.
Like Korean church, it's like pretty hymned, like it's the same stuff. And like I said, black churches, it's a lot more emotional. It's like more connection and heart. And I'm just
they've been through it.
I feel like they've been through it, and I feel like we missed out on a fucking cool version of that. But anyways, okay, I think we're about the halfway point, so we're gonna go into we'll tentatively call it story time.
Okay.
So yeah, see you guys there. All right, welcome to story time, story corner. Okay, so my story, I mean, guys, I'm sorry, or maybe I'm not. Most of my stories are gonna be about when I was just in my full douchebaggery, like when I was younger. And this
full douchebaggery,
the act of being a douchebag. Okay. And this is not an exception. So I remember after my freshman year of college, right? I'm a big bad college student now. I've been to college parties. Oh, you think you smoke weed? That's cute. I was on that energy. And so my best friend, who's a year younger than me, he wanted me to come through for his birthday party. Like a friend of his was throwing a fat birthday for him. Like people were coming through. And I was on some like fucking snobby, like, you want me to go to a high school party? Like, I guess. Like I'm not doing anything tonight. Whatever. We get there early because it's his birthday. We're setting up, we're pre-gaming. And that's when I really first hit a gravity bong. Right? Do you know what a gravity bong is?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so it's like, I mean, I guess it's just a very harsh and intense way to smoke.
Okay.
Like, imagine if you cut half like a gallon of milk, right? Like a plastic thing.
Okay.
You cut it in half, you put it in water, you light the bowl, and you lift it up, and you fill that entire fucking thing with smoke. Okay?
I don't know what that means, but...
All right, anyways,
They're
intense,
me,
potent, and it's dirty. It's a very, like, not classy way to do shit.
Okay.
But whatever. We go hard in the paint.
Okay.
So they're just like, yo, Choi, don't hit all that though. Like this is intense. And I was like, give me that fucking, don't go hard, man. Get out of my way. And I'm trying to act all cool and I inhale the whole thing, right? I'm just dying coughing. But this is familiar territory. You smoke weed, you cough, and then you get happy after, right? Have you ever gotten green sick?
Don't know what that is.
Green sick is when you get, it's like alcohol poisoning for weed. It doesn't happen often, but like it fucks you up where like it debilitates.
That does not sound fun.
Okay, so
no
I ended up getting fucking green sick
Okay.
before the party happened. I'm trying to keep my cool, but I'm sweating bullets. I'm just like uncomfortable. My head hurts. Everything's spinning. You okay? I'm cool. All these people start to file in. It's getting popping. It's getting late. And I just remember the moment. We're all sitting around a campfire. I know like 4 or 5 people there, right? Out of nowhere, I just faint. I just fall in my chair on my face, and I can't move. Like, yo, Choi.
Yeah.
And I can't move. My eyes are open, and I can't talk either.
Yeah.
And I feel nauseous, but I can't throw up. And I literally just, it's like I got possessed. It was the most scared I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
And I hear, yo, what the fuck happened to that guy? Who the fuck invited that dude? I shit you not, I started crying. my face on the ground, tears, because I was so embarrassed. Like, what the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah.
Right? The older brother of the friend who was throwing the party comes home to the party. He's like, hey, who the fuck invited this kid? Like, what happened here? And I'm just like, oh my fucking God. My friend had to ask strangers, his homies, to pick my ass up, drive me home to my house with my mom's car that I was driving.
It's grown man.
Pick me up, take me to the door, and then they left. So that was literally the most embarrassed I've ever been in my entire fucking life. And
didn't learn your lesson from that.
I mean, I didn't get green since then.
Oh, okay. All right.
But
I guess that's a win. Yeah.
It's a win. I don't wish that upon anybody, not even my worst enemy. So thanks guys for helping me out. All right, over to you, sir.
Yeah. So I think when we talk about like, I guess my segment is quote unquote like debunking false Christian doctrine and stuff like that.
Drop that knowledge.
I think one thing that I've learned, so as preachers and pastors, we have grown to hear and know God in different seasons of our lives. And sometimes in certain seasons, we say or preach things that are not biblical, right? And before some people just start wilding out and going crazy, we may have the purest intention to try to see God and preach the gospel in ways that are relevant. But there are times when we share things and see things because we've learned things from other people that are just not right. And
but can I pause you real quick?
Yeah.
Because that was real. We glossed over that, but my ears went, what the fuck? Wait, so as a pastor, this is the first time I'm hearing this from a pastor. Yeah. Pastors are aware about the fact that they may have preached or taught on a pulpit shit that is not biblical or even right.
For sure. Yeah, it's not because they wanted to believe that. It's just during their season. Yeah, there are moments where I'm sure every pastor looks back and cringed at the idea, like, did I really preach that message?
Right.
Did I really say that? So, I mean, that's an all in our resume.
I feel like we deserved at least a fucking email. Like, I bought a car, something's wrong with the warrant, there's a callback, and I get a notice, call us back. I have never once heard any pastor admitting to speaking wrong about something.
Oh yeah, you might get like an appetizer, at Applebee's when they take you out for one-on-ones. Yeah. I don't know. That'll be the gesture, but
interesting. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. But I think one of the things that I've learned, and one of the things that we've probably heard in church, is the idea that God will never give you more than you can handle. It's a really
heard that one before.
It's a positive message, right? Yeah. Like what you're going through, you can overcome because God will give you more.
So the message being, God will never give you something you cannot handle. That's the bite. That's the sound.
Yeah, that's the whole idea of like you could, for any situation or circumstance, you could pick yourself up and everything's gonna be okay. It's a positive theme, but it's not exactly a biblical theme. Simply because we see in the text, we see people very poor. We see people who suffer. We see people even die for the sake of the gospel, the sake of their faith. And I think we try to overly give this overly positive message, like everything's gonna be okay at every time.
Yeah.
But that's simply just not true. Sometimes life is harder than you realize. You know what I mean? And so during those moments, I think we have to have a genuine faith as to why do I believe in this God, but how is God present and what am I really living for that allows me to go through this suffering rather than, the suffering, it's gonna get better. Because it may not. Right. And I think that's the reality of it. Yeah. Is if your faith is only dictated by how you live your life, or meaning what you have, what you don't have, how easy it is, that's a very superficial and shallow faith. Right. It's the people that are willing to go through the grind, through the good, bad, and the ugly that really demonstrates this is what I'm about and this is what I'm living for. And so I get what people are trying to say. I've said it myself to people, but I realized that's not really an encouragement, more so than a false fortune cookie given to somebody just to make them feel better for the moment.
On some kumbaya
shit. We want genuine, real, authentic faith, not something that's just gonna like, here's a cookie.
Right, to make you feel better.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. All right, that was our segment. Back to the main program. All right, welcome back. I still have PTSD from that green sickness story. Have you guys ever cried from pure shame before? Just last episode was about shame. Just out of shame, having fucking beads of tears coming down, like that shit was not fun.
I'm sure you still cringe about it by
yourself. Dude, I had a dude literally carry me fucking damsel in distress style to my mom. Anyways, but we're here to talk about worship. So yeah, back to that topic. It's interesting because I keep mentioning like back before COVID, Ray and I would go through all these churches and visit, and I talked about how like no matter what church, country, wherever you go to, you have the ability to kind of connect with God in through worship.
Yeah.
But it's funny because as we were going through churches, we definitely didn't stick around for worship at the end.
Oh, the response time.
We deuced the fuck out. And honestly, we rolled in a little late to Judas Smith's church because we didn't want to have to stand up and clap our hands sometimes. Like, you want to stop by Starbucks? Bet. You know?
Yeah.
So as we went from church to church, there was definitely this sense of like, I want to edit the program, right? I'm not here for all that. I'm here for the message. You need to hit me with this performance, but I'm not going to allow myself or just put myself in a position where I got to stand in that awkward space.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about that?
I mean, if you're the new person coming in every week, I don't know what it is. Even though at one point when we were growing up, worship was like your favorite part. When you go to new churches or you're the new person, worship is the one thing you just want to miss out on. You just want to hear the word and you just want to dip out quick. I have no idea why.
You think it's an ego thing?
I don't know.
Like you don't want to be cut out here looking goofy?
Maybe. Maybe the other part of it is, I mean, we were just talking about it, like the idea that maybe you don't want to allow yourself to feel too much. You know, because maybe you were such a passionate worshiper or a passionate singer, and then, like I said before, like logic and being rational takes over to where you're closed off to music, and you're like, I don't see what the point of this is anymore.
I relate to that.
Yeah.
Now that you say that, I think part of the reason we did skip worship is because of that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I feel like there's this somewhat of an intoxication culture within churches where it's like, think about altar calls, right? You're telling me you're gonna get somebody into an environment where everybody is rah, hands in the air, wailing for the Lord. I am on a spiritual high, and then you're gonna be like, who wants to give up their life to Jesus? It's like, dude, that's the same shit as like getting someone drunk and being like, you want to kiss? It's like,
I don't know how you equated the two, but
because you're okay. I equate the two. Thank you, because someone out there's gonna be like, what the fuck is he talking about? The idea here is having somebody make a decision when they're not sober-minded.
Sure.
Isn't the decision to follow God and your life partner, your marriage, like the two biggest decisions in your life?
I think so. Yeah.
Yet we're gonna make the decision when we're not sober-minded in a setting that is so sheltered and specific.
Right.
I feel like because they don't bring out the contract. Right, of like what we're actually asking you to do is to abandon all fleshly desires and you know what I'm saying? It's like that decision should be made sober-minded, couple of days at least. Is just something that kind of thing, you know? But yeah, no, for sure. I didn't want to hit worship session because I didn't want to even allow myself to even potentially get opened up in that way. Because I want to evaluate this with a sober mind as a product, as a consumer.
Yeah. And that's real. And that may be just the byproduct of because you were overly emotional before, and that's why you would say you drank the Kool-Aid. You're not going to allow yourself to get to that point anymore.
I'm a very emotional dude.
But I think that the other part of it is we deprive ourselves from like a really powerful, intimate, personal moment. And that's scary for some people because they're afraid of what it's going to look like, etc. And that's real. And I don't want to negate that point, but I think part of that is. Maybe for those that are like, well, I don't want to go to church for this portion. I just want to go for that portion. Maybe supplement that in your own time. Maybe like in your car, just kicking it, just listening to some music back then. And it just hits you just out of nowhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think you owe it to yourself, to ourselves to have those moments, to experience these things that may be supernatural. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear though, from a programmatic perspective, churches do worship first as an opening act to...
It's strategic. 100%.
Okay.
100%.
Stay woke out there.
It warms up the speaker, gets them livened up. And that part is a little bit maybe disingenuous for some people.
Yeah.
But otherwise, other people just come into these services and they're just like stone. Right. Convince me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think the church has been a little bit more strategic as to, let's allow music to soften you up a little bit so that you can be a little bit more sober-minded, quote unquote, to listen to maybe God speaking into you or something like that.
Some might call that predatorial. I don't know.
I'm not down with the fog lights and the streams and all that other stuff. Like that's a little much.
Music's very strategic. Okay, when a pastor's rapping up his message, right? The one dude walks up on the keyboard, the guitar, and just everything gets more intense. Like it's a fucking monologue on a movie, right?
Yeah.
I love that for two reasons. One, like I definitely pay attention more when there's a fucking song going on. Like, okay, he's saving his bars for this moment here. And then two, that means we're almost out of here.
Yeah.
10 more minutes and we can go fucking eat, bro. Yeah. Swish, swish, boiling point, let's go. So that music is strategic in that way. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing about worship for me is when I was like fully in church, there are levels to worship, right? And it's like, think about like fucking jujitsu or taekwondo belts. You're a white belt if you're just there and you're singing along. You're taking a seat and you're singing, right? And then maybe you might start the melodic claps.
Yeah.
And then you get this bravery to stand up.
Yeah.
And then there's a TV holder, you know, or maybe the one hand and the two hand, and then this and then that.
Yeah.
I would equate like that to how much somebody loved God.
Yeah.
And like I would actually shame myself of like, how dare you not be as foolish as those people, or not as vulnerable as those people.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Do you think there's some like danger of like toxicity in that, or is that just all like in the eye of the beholder? Like that's on you, bro.
Yeah. I mean, I think inadvertently we may judge and assess and critique like other people's form of worship and think like, oh, that's deep spirituality or that's not. And I'm like, you can't control that. I'm just a little bit more expressive in how I live my life. I'm loud. I use hand gestures. Like I'm a hugger.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more expressive. So when I worship, I'm all over the place. My hands are going out. Right. I'm moving. I'm swaying. Yeah. Sometimes I'm giving you the two-step. Like all these things. I'm a lot more expressive, right? Some people are a little bit more internalized. Yeah. Good. Cool. That's okay.
That's how I view. Like I guess if I were to define it, worship is not a fucking guitar and a drum cage and whatever, you know, it's like it's expressing your love for God. Yeah. What be it in dance, song, claps, whatever.
Yep.
Another thing that like used to bother me towards the tail end of when I was going to church is people put up fucking words on a projector and we just recite that shit without thinking about it. Isn't that weird? Like some worship songs, 100%. I feel like I actually don't agree with what's going on, but like I'm not gonna miss out on this hook, like you know what I'm saying, or like whatever it is. Isn't that weird?
Yep. And that's 100% true. We don't even know what the songs are or what they're saying. We just know that this melody is about to go into.
It's a banger.
And it's gonna be the high note, and you gotta hold that note, and it's gonna be the chills.
Harmonize if you are skilled enough.
You know? And so, I think that's part of the danger. Is like we sing songs that we don't even know, we don't believe in, we may not even agree with, but we do it because it sounds good. Yeah. There's no depth to that. And that's that's real. I mean, we want to be able to have, like we've been talking about, authentic, real faith. Yeah. We got to be able to dissect and really like, I'm not saying we got to be overly critical of the words, but we got to be able to like understand like what the heck are we really singing right now? Right.
And I mean, okay, to play on the other side of the fence, like, I mean, I get it, churches, like, if you're gonna have a worship band, you want to bring out the most talented motherfuckers you have in the church, right? Like, we were watching church home service, and at the end, they had this like dope ass like cinematic group on the top of like a LA building.
Bless them.
And they were nasty.
Bless them.
Like to the point where like we were talking, like we were debriefing the message, and we like just inadvertently stopped talking, and we're all like, oh my god, they're so good. Yeah. You know? So it's like I get it. It makes sense, I guess. Me being the bitter guy that I am right now, it's like I felt like I was a little taken advantage of. You know, it's like, because that's all I ever knew was like you started out with the worship thing.
Yeah. But there's some talent that you just got to be able to say that's some talent.
No, facts. I mean, dude, you know? The first thing I judge a church on is that, right? Because that's the first, you walk in, okay, what does the production setup look like? You got a drum cage at least, you got fucking studio lights. At least that, right? Yeah. And then you wait for I've gone to a church sermon. I'm not gonna name no names. God bless them. Yo, it was ass. Okay. Like it. I'm not saying the worship and the spirit was ass. Yeah. But the vocals, the instruments.
God bless them. They mean well.
I thought they were fucking with me, and I was like, it's fucking for real. Yeah. So certainly, I mean, the heart is good and all that, but like, you know, you want to put in someone that can kill it and be like, oh shit, like what's going on here, right?
Yeah. Because whether we want to admit it or not, it's distracting if you're tone deaf and you're leading the songs. Yeah. Because you're just focused on that and you can't really focus on nothing else. Yeah. I get it.
Fun fact, my mom is tone deaf, and so she'll like worship very quietly. She only worships when she's by herself. Yeah. I don't get tone deaf people. Are you tone deaf? No. Do you know someone that's tone deaf?
Yes.
I don't get it. Do they not have a hearing thing?
I think they've been told that they can't sing, but for those that are really tone deaf and just saying, F it, I'm going to go at it,
They get out of it, right?
No, they're still tone deaf. Like, it's still bad. It's still
so it's
bad.
a real.
Yeah.
So I thought it was like a placebo confidence thing.
No.
No.
No. When you meet real tone deaf people, God bless them.
Damn.
Yeah.
Hey, we still love you.
Mad love.
Yeah.
Mad love. Do you?
Damn, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay. Well, I guess this was an interesting topic because like worship is not necessarily something I've been traumatized by, but it's like it's relevant.
Yeah.
And yeah, like back to my story in the car, it's like I went months without going to church, and I instantly felt a connection with God. Because like that was the one thing I can't deny is the connection I felt in the moments of like true, vulnerable, walls down worship.
Right.
So,
but that's the journey, and I think as we continue on, like trying to understand God, like who am I, and what it's like to go back to church. The thing that drew you in the first place, the thing that you love most, becomes the thing that you are trying to distance yourself from. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if worship was the thing that you loved most, you realize it's not the thing that I want to do right now.
Yeah.
Why?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And you got to see the trauma in that. You know, you got to see the hurt in that of like
trauma.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I get. It's like when you date someone, you break up with them. Like the trait you love the most, you're like, "Fuck that! I'm gonna stay away from that for my next."
Because you're afraid of that. You're afraid of what it can do or what's gonna lead you to. And and I'm like, that's fair. Let's try to find that your own personal time. That time where maybe it is real.
I like that.
I don't know.
I like that. Yeah. So the moments of like not necessarily needing a church and a band to worship. It's like, dude, this is a one-on-one thing between you and the guy upstairs.
Start there.
I like that a lot.
You know what I mean? Let's see what happens. I don't know.
Word. All right. Well, I'm glad we talked about worship because it's like also we wanted to take a little bit of a break from all the heavy shit.
Yeah.
And like again, worship is like something we can all relate to, and I think it just music transcends all borders, right?
Right.
Everything. So all right, guys, thanks for riding. We'll be back. Actually, we may or may not be back in a week's time. Our dude is getting dose number 2.
Number 2.
So we'll see how that happens, but we'll definitely be back soon. So stay tuned.
Peace.